Good evening, everybody. Onegaishimasu. I hope everyone is just feeling fine. Those of you that got up so early in the morning in Europe, thank you for joining us. We're happy to see you. I know in Russia it's slightly later in the morning, so I didn't praise you up, but thank you for coming also. All right, I'm going to read you Shokushu number 14 this evening, Fudoshin. True Fudoshin is not an unmoving mind, but the condition that becomes infinitely close to the still state, but is never still. In other words, a calm state arises from infinite movement. By absorbing all things into this movement, that becomes infinitely smaller and smaller, we can experience Fudoshin. This state does not fluctuate even if 10,000 mountains collapse around us. So tonight, we are on the 7th of Toi Sensei's selected day-by-day calendar phrases. And it is the universe never ceases, and yet only human beings constantly stop mind. Sayaka, are you here? Would you read this for us, please, in Japanese?
止まっているものは何もない。人間だけが心を止める。
Okay, thank you very much. Now, don't go away. This saying is taken from a poem that Toi Sensei wrote a long time ago that is one of his favorite phrases. And in fact, he likes it so much that he puts it in ceramic on this plate that he gives used to give each one of his students that reached 50 years of training with him. And first I'll ask Sayaka to read it in Japanese, and then I'll read it in English.
さらさらと滞らぬが仏なり。よきも悪しきも、こるは鬼なり。
Okay, thank you very much. In English, that says, let your ki flow like a river and never let it stop. Getting stuck on something, whether good or bad, is never good. The past does not return. Only human beings cling to the past. The universe never ceases. So, this is like only human beings do this. Animals don't do this. Plants don't do this. Even bugs don't do this. This is just us, folks. So this is like we say stop mind, but this is like stopping time, trying to halt the horses, trying to stop time from moving forward. Something to consider. Let's do a little key breathing and then we'll come back and look at this more closely. Okay, sit up straight, please. Okay, stretch your body. Okay, so when mind stops, it means our attention is just collapsed down on something, right? So you can think of many different examples of this. When you're sitting in meditation, it's the easiest to notice because your attention, instead of being open and free and resting in this freedom, it gets caught up on one idea, something you don't want or something you do want, something you didn't like in your past or something you do like very much from your past and can't stop thinking about how wonderful it was. So this is our attention collapsing down on a single item. But this also happens in, of course, in the dojo. So when we're taking a key test and the examiner comes and tests, touches our body in some place, usually it's here to begin with, and our mind stops here, or our mind collapses down to this one spot, instead of our feeling sense or our feeling body being complete, feeling our whole body, mind body unified, we have now only just this little spot when we're thinking of that little spot that we're very attracted to because he's touching it or she's touching it there. So our mind stops, and of course, we fail the key test. And likewise, when we're doing techniques, someone grabs your body in some place, grabs your wrist. What happens? Your mind goes to your wrist. And instead of being free to move everywhere, there's no energy in your body to move it because it's all right there. Your attention is not spread out and free and balanced. It's localized so that everything is collapsed down to that one point, to that one, wherever it is that you're being struck. Maybe it's a Yokomunuchi Shionagi or a Shomanuchi Kokinage or a Katate Dori or a real Katate Dori. So I read tonight Fudoshin, and because this is Toi Sensei's way of explaining or pointing to the movement of the universe. So he says it's not just, we say Fudoshin means unmoving mind. Fudo means not moving. Fudo Tai means unmoving body. Fudo, not moving, Tai, body. Fudo, unmoving, Shin, mind. But Fudo, Shin doesn't mean the mind doesn't move, means seems not to move. But when it becomes very, very calm, or in other words, when our attention is very, very fully aware and present, the side effect of that full awareness is a sense we call calmness, which everything seems very, very still. But actually, what's happened is the rhythm within us that used to be boom, 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 the more we pay attention and the calmer we become, becomes boom, 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 boom. Sheng, Suzuki Sensei used to call it Sheng. So this feeling is one of incredibly rapid movement that cannot be maybe perceived, except it can be felt. We feel it now, actually, and the more calm you are right now, the more you will feel it. You know? And so here's the difference, though. I said before, yeah, even plants and animals, and maybe bugs too, everything seems to be in a state of furoshin. If you watch an animal like a horse or some kind of ungulate is in the field eating grass, and it becomes surprised, what happens? It's gone. It's boom, it's gone because it's already moving. It moves because it was already moving, right? It doesn't ever, because it's life and death for an animal like that, it doesn't ever become distracted from the reality of survival. So it's always, its key is always out. It's always incredibly present. Even my cat, when it seems to be sleeping, well, it is sleeping. That's how it sleeps. But if I come in the room and it was sleeping, its head comes up immediately. Sleeping, not sleeping, no difference. Because he's already in this state of movement. This is something we can experience ourselves very easily. And when we go deeply into, I have to say this, well, of course, the one point in the lower abdomen, get deeply into experiencing Furoshin, or the movement of the universe, then we have a great feeling of peace and stability. So that this is Sensei calls following the way of the universe. So the way-seeking mind seeks to follow the way of the universe. Yes? And what is the way of the universe? The way of the universe is boom, 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 boom. The movement of the universe is what we're following. And that movement is infinitely rapid and is infinitely constant. It doesn't change no matter what happens. It's always there. So as long as we're following the movement of the universe, we are also always here. The minute we start trying to prevent something dangerous from happening to us, or we try to get something pleasurable for ourselves, we stop this movement. The movement continues, but we stop our awareness of, and so appreciation of, this movement. So we're not in it. We're no longer following the way of the universe. We're following the way of ourself, following the way of our small mind, which is obsessed with pleasure, getting more, pain, getting less. And then there's so much that it's completely indifferent to or ignorant of, because it doesn't even notice it. It doesn't notice it because we're too busy collapsing down on this, that, and the other thing. So that's why we're doing this practice, which is basically just being present, just being in Furoshin all the time. Okay? So this is a big subject for Toi Sensei. He taught this constantly. So when he taught like Taiki competition, so the whole point of Taiki competition is to maintain this Furoshin throughout, whether you're Nage or Uke. And that's maintaining this intense connection, which cannot exist unless each of you is experiencing Furoshin. If each of you is following the way, and motion continues no matter what within you, even if you're sitting still, like most of you are right now, still this motion is continuing within us. So then we bow in, the Taiki competition, we stand, we walk forward, and then one of us attacks, one of us begins motion. Because Toi Sensei is watching to see if that motion was already going before you moved, or if you went and moved from a dead state, or a distracted state, or a worried state. If you have anxiety, your mind is collapsed down on anxiety. So whatever it is that keeps us from being aware is a collapsing of our attention on that one thing, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, or maybe even could be called spiritual, if it takes our attention exclusively for itself, then we've stopped our mind. We've moved away from following the universe. Okay, so the question, of course, is how many times do we do this in every day? Probably a lot. Okay, so your moderator this evening is Ilima Loomis tonight. So please listen to Ilima, and she will send you to your discussion rooms. Thank you very much.
We had a very interesting conversation. It included myself, Schubert Sensei, Phoenix, Vitali, and Sally. And it was a really great conversation. And there was one question, but just quickly, we kind of ran out the comparison to animals and how in real life, it really is life and death if you're paying attention. Except Schubert Sensei was saying that he thinks we impose this on dogs, that dogs aren't the same way, and that we kind of have made them more human-like in the way they react to things around us. And I thought that was really, really great. And then, so that brought up about Sally and her rooster that was too smart to go into a trap because it was life and death. And then Phoenix was talking about how much compassion she's been feeling from Sensei in these meetings, Curtis Sensei, and that it just seems to come across as he talks about these subjects. And then Vitali, who he said he didn't know that if he understood, and this is what I'm going to have Curtis Sensei speak to here in a second, that he didn't know if he really understood that we could have our mind on everything and be in the universe and connected to everything and yet focus on something else. So I told him that I really thought that, you know, a lot of the people in these Zoom meetings aren't senseis. They haven't been around forever. And I remember thinking this same thing myself way back. So I thought it'd be really nice if Curtis Sensei could discuss this, you know, with some of these people who haven't experienced this quite yet.
So just to make it, to be clear, you are asking if, or your group is asking if someone can be completely connected with the universe and at the same time not connected with the universe. Is that what you're asking? I don't
Sensei,
really
that's
the question.
Oh.
Did I answer your question right there without meaning to?
Well, Sensei, I think the one that really needs to answer this would be like Vitali and some of the members who haven't been in for a while, that they don't understand this universal concept of being connected and yet being able to be focused on something they're doing.
Well, the universe is not something other than what we're doing. The universe is this. So whatever you're focused on, it is the universe. It's just that, as I explained earlier today, when you limit, when you focus, when you collapse your attention down on one small aspect of what's presently happening, you're liable to miss 90% of your life. And so you may be concentrating on the universe, even though you're distracted from all of it, because whatever you're looking at is going to be part of the universe. So no one can say you're not focused on the universe, but are you focused on it completely, or are you collapsed down on just a little part of it? Let's think about this. When our mind stops and everything else keeps going, that's where conflict arises. When this person comes to you to grab your wrist on the mat in the dojo, and they're moving into you, and if you're not moving also, if your mind stops there and you get stuck in that position and don't feel you can move, and then that's conflict. Conflict is created by mind stopping or mind collapsing. I'm just suggesting tonight that mind collapsing is the same as mind stopping. So that's what we call mind stopping. When your mind is stuck on something, it's collapsed down on that. I'm just like, maybe for Vitali, when I use the word collapse, it's because I'm trying to point to the fact that you have shrunken your attention down to a small portion. It doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it's not a small portion of reality. but it's not a big enough portion to really see what's going on. You're liable to think a whole elephant looks like his toenail if that's all you can see. Okay, now wait, before this group goes away, I can't let you escape without addressing Olaf's dog. Olaf says, as I understood it, that we have destroyed or distracted or bothered or harmed dogs exclusively in all the animal kingdom, even though we've done this to horses and cats and everything. But Olaf is saying, and Olaf, you can jump in here any moment and tell me I'm dead wrong here, but I'll tell you something interesting. When I was in my 3-year retreat, my teacher, my friend that was guiding me, said that when we domesticate an animal, we do it a great deal of harm. And I think maybe this is what you're trying to get at. But you can't just single out dogs, my friend. I think that we have to be willing to realize that we have domesticated a whole bevy of animals. And if we're going to take the responsibility for one, we should probably take the responsibility for all. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, I see that Martha has her hand up.
Good evening, Sensei.
Good evening.
I was in group 3, which had Stokesbury Sensei, Perez, I'm not sure, Joel Perez Sensei, maybe, Joni, Roy, and myself. We had a discussion about the nature of collapsing, if it has to do with focusing on one point solely, or if there's something else involved which makes it collapse. And then I brought up that Nakamura Sensei, as I have heard, taught Toei Sensei a method of meditation in which he focused on one point on the wall. And as he stared at that for 48 hours or so, that was the first experience he had with enlightenment. So if that is correct, what I understood, he used focusing on one point, not his thoughts, but outside of him, as a way to reach the entire universe. So how does that relate? Could you tell us more about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are you saying that that Nakamura Tenpu achieved enlightenment by staring at a point on the wall, or are you saying Toei Sensei did?
Well, I think I read in one of the older books by Toei Sensei that was his practice as he experienced enlightenment for the first time. And I know that Nakamura Sensei taught several ways of meditation, focusing on one sound or focusing on one dot.
So what is your question exactly?
So what is the relationship between, well, it seems contradictive that you could focus on one point and not collapse down, but actually become enlightened. So you include everything in the universe by focusing on one point. Could you expand on that?
Okay, so just so that people don't get confused, we're talking about focusing on a point on the wall. So one point in our school is what is the one point in the lower abdomen. And Nakamura Sensei also addressed that with Toei Sensei. But I see what you're asking, I think. And maybe, in fact, this is a little bit what Vitaly was wondering. Like, can you pick something like a candle flame, for instance, or a single sound and hear the whole universe in it? And the answer is yes. But that's not collapsing down on the sound. That, or on the point on the wall, that is, when you look at the point on the wall, you are able, because you're so focused, you are able to expand your awareness to include everything and are not distracted by anything. There's a famous Indian teacher that couldn't keep his mind on ajna. So he found a piece of glass and stuck it in his forehead. And by doing that, he allowed himself to focus more easily. And when he focused on this point, ajna, everything opened up to him. So this is the opposite of collapsing down. Okay? I think that's enough about that.
Sensei, Crystal had a question from group 1.
Yes.
Hello, Sensei. Hello,
Hello.
hello all.
Hello.
Yes, we have a very nice group with Fincher Sterling Sensei, Linda Sabaki Sensei, I don't know the exact name, and Jan and Kaomi. And we have a discussion about a question that I had. If you feel sometimes resistant against the very quick movement of the universe, and then we talk about it, and Fincher Sterling said you can't solve the problem with the problem. And you have to undo some things, and then we are talking about the feeling, because Sensei, you always said you have to feel it, not to think about it. And then we ask or talk about how is this feeling, or like. So this was our discussion.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I got some things there, but did you have a question?
Yes, how can we, if we feel, or if I feel that I'm resistance to this very quick movement, to this
What?
Fudushin.
Oh, I see. Why would you be resistant?
Maybe I want some things not, or I'm distracted with other people and the feelings of other people. So I think.
And if you are, then the question is,
how can I be more open in these situations? Don't get stuck on it.
Yeah, and Fincher said you can't fix the problem with the problem.
Yes. He said.
That's a good answer. Yeah, because we try, that's what we do. We try to resolve we are not experiencing emptiness because we're grasping at things to fill our empty feeling. You cannot add more things to get closer to empty. You have to let go. Not let go of the things, but let go of the grasping. That's really what Toy Sensei is talking about. Someone recently wrote me an email and said, I don't understand about this letting go. I have all this anger. I don't know how to let go of it. And so we don't try to let go of anger. You can't let go of anger. You let go of the source of anger, which is that you want to control things. When we can't control things, when we feel we're being controlled, that makes us angry. Whether it's a child or an old man or a bureaucrat or our best friend or the love of our life, we still get pissed off if we feel like we're being controlled. We can't stand it. And so the letting go is letting go of the illusion that you ever had any control.
Mm.
You see. So that's what following the way of the universe is. It's practicing giving up our demands on life, that it be a certain way, and trying to manipulate things to make life that way. So one of the ways we do this, our practice, is we say to practice awareness. And awareness is everything at once, not one little thing. Or if you pick one little thing, then that little thing must become everything. This is what Nakamura was teaching, Temple Nakamura. Okay. This isn't a class on Temple Nakamura, but I'm only referring it because she went to a seminar with that school. And Toy Sensei did study with him, and he was a pretty amazing guy. So I guess it's okay to mention. All right, so next group, please.
Can we have someone from breakout room 5, please?
Yes.
Christoph.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sensei.
Hello, Christoph.
There was André, Belyashov, Alexei, Byron, Nakamura, Prisoner Sensei, and myself. So we exchanged on a number of topics, but at the end we have a pretty down-to-earth question. What would be the role of very intensive training in our capacity in being immediately available for action? There is the example you gave of Toei Sensei being interested during the Tai competition in checking on people their ability to be not in a reactive mode, but to be in the flow somehow. And the question is, how intensive training could help reaching this state of calmness, or just being available for action and not leaving room for thinking somehow?
Yeah. Oh, this is a great question. I love this question because it's Fudoshin. In other words, that's what Toei Sensei is pointing to, is when we have the presence in our mind body of infinite movement, Fudoshin, when our mind is infinitely rapid, and so infinitely rapid that you can't even tell it's moving, then you are in action. So at that moment, you are ready for anything. So that's what we call, like when you're in a Taigi competition, I think you mentioned, you're ready for anything. You're completely present. And your movements are not reaction, but pure response because of the state of mind. Does that address your question?
Yes, but that's the outcome. And the question was more to get there, to be able to be what you describe now. How could the intensive training, how involving ourselves into very intensive training could help reaching out this capacity, this ability to be present during a Taigi competition?
Yeah. Yes,
because the intensive training could at least address the fact that we are not anymore stuck into thinking about techniques and but we are extremely free somehow. But maybe this is not related. But that's the question.
Okay. So yeah. So well, I'll say something about that. When I first started training, when Suzuki Sensei first came back from Japan, we often did before class, we practiced what he called Suzuki Waza. Not Suzuki, but Suzuki Waza. Just anyone can attack anytime as fast as you want, and you just have to deal with it. Of course, very difficult if you stop to think for a moment, if your mind considers for a moment, of course you get smacked and fall down. So that's a good way to practice. I'd call that intensive training. But I have a feeling that when people say intensive training, they think that's physical, that means some kind of physical thing. But intensive training is every kind of intensive training. So not only is physically training intensively very useful, but of course, intensive meditation is also extremely useful. So any kind of complete commitment to this training will help us prepare to experience Fudoshin.
Yes, and obviously the meditation can lead to this state of calmness and to this capacity of. But the question, in a way, a musician that really a great artist will still have to do every day all the basic. Pianists will still have to do every day all the basic practice. Well, just to keep the fingers agile, but also to become free of this basic level of presence in his practice and become available for something else somehow. And this takes hours of pa 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 pa, do re mi fa sol la si do re mi fa sol la si do, whatever. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not a musician, but this is the way I project it.
Yeah, well, of course, musicians always say that they must do that, but of course, this is their instrument. Whether they're playing a piano or a flute or a guitar, it's all the same. They have to use that instrument every day, or their body won't be able to perform because that's their form of expression. However, if you're just looking for Fudoshin, if you're just looking for the deepest level of experience, that can also be obtained without moving the body. The body is an instrument that if we're going to use it, like in Aikido techniques, we have to keep it tuned. Like when I do techniques, they're complete, but they're quite a bit slower than I did when I was in shape, in really good shape, and young and agile. But when you get older, these things begin to be less responsive in the physical body. And I think that's probably why when Suzuki got older, Suzuki Sensei, Toi Sensei got older, and as I get older, I notice that, when O Sensei got older, he retired out to Iwama and didn't do nearly as much physical training. You just tend to slow down and your interest becomes much more interrelated, much more related to a deeper level of awareness. I did meet an Aikikai lady once, I think I've told you about. And she said, she was in Japan training, and she said, I said, what will you do? She said, my body's, I'm 50 years old, my body is starting to go. I said, whoa, what will you do? And she said, well, I'll quit. She was Aikikai. And I said, why? And she said, well, because that's all there is. If I can't, that's like if you are a great musician and you lose your voice, you can't sing anymore. Well, are you just gonna commit suicide? No, you're gonna go deeper. That's what's gonna happen. Anyway, that's a very interesting question because people are always looking for, how do I get closer to the real me? How do I get closer to this original condition that people are reporting to me is so intense? that the feeling is so amazing to be in this state. How do I have this thing all the time? What do I have to do? I can say, but who wants to do it is the question. Oh, I think all you people do, because here you are. That's very nice. Thank you, Christoph. Did we skip room 4? Do we have a group 4?
We do not have a room 4, Sensei. You
Oh.
are room 4.
I am room 4. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, so did anyone else? Tracy, did you have something you wanted to say? The way you're looking at me, I'm wondering.
No, nothing to say. I'm good.
You're kidding me. You heard all that and you have nothing
Well,
to say.
Good. I'm good, Sensei.
What?
Sensei, Paiva Sensei is raising her hand.
Okay, Paiva Sensei, what would you like to say?
If I may, I'd like to tell about what happened in Japan. One of the last time that Tohei Sensei was on the mat that I remember, because we're talking about the physical and that intense movement.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what year it was, but it was after he'd had his strokes and he came out with the walker and we all sat there in Seiza and waited for him to come up and sit on this little recliner. And they said they wanted all the Shodan and above to line up and attack Tohei Sensei one by one while he was in the recliner. And I started to get up and run to him. And the very last thought that was in my head, God bless me, was, how am I going to attack this old man? The next minute, or second, I had like airtime over 3 or 4 mats and did this most gorgeous roll. And I don't even remember touching him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of the most beautiful moments I've had. And it had nothing to do with the physical, yet he threw me.
Yeah. So Tohei Sensei was definitely, that was 2002, by the way, I was there. And I've had that experience with him a lot of times because I trained with him a lot. But it got to be much more intense as he got older. And less able to use his physical body. The less he could use a physical body, the more powerful he became. Isn't that interesting? So one time we were practicing with Boken, and he said, Mr. Curtis, come here. He said, you raise this Boken to me. And so he's sitting there, he's got his cane. It was pre-Walker, he had his cane. This is in the late 90s. So he's just looking at me like this. And I brought my Boken up and he just went with his cane and knocked it out of the way and stuck it in my face. It was like, you tell stories like this about your teacher, and other people hear it and they think, what the heck's he talking about? Some people have an uncanny, some people are fortunate and have this opportunity. And if you're open to it, you will have an unusual experience. That's all I probably should say, no more about that. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Okay, so Sunday, tomorrow morning, we have a class at our dojo, the second class in 8 months. At 9 o'clock in the morning, we're having a few people come to do Boken practice with masks and social distancing. But I wanted to remind you that Sunday, we will have our meditation class at 7, but at 9 o'clock, which is whatever Euro clock over there, we have this special Spanish class. And this month, the Spanish class will be a addressing this scroll that Toi Sensei, that O Sensei made for Suzuki Sensei, and Suzuki Sensei gave me many years ago. I think I wrote to you about that, but I just want to remind you, everyone is welcome. All right, thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. So when I bow in without telling you, okay, let's bow, and when I go domo arigatou gozaimashita without telling you that let's bow, that's testing your furoshin. And as Tracy has told me, heads go many different times. All heads should go like this if we're all in furoshin. Thank you very much.